What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality. Directive 8020 just dropped last week, and I took about 7 hours to play through the entire game from start to finish. And my god, I am not overselling this when I say this game had one of the most lackluster plot twists and narrative structures that I've seen written in a very long time. This video will explore the thematic premise of Directive 8020 story, where the plot sculpting this framework of the narrative capsizes altogether, and how the rather redundant horror sequences undercut the gameplay experience as you progress deeper into the episodes. Hey you, quit listening to all these crazy people and blinded fanatics and save your money. Directive 8020 pierces your ass with a fishhook and leaves you hanging over high water. Now, I'm not saying Directive 8020 was the worst game I ever played, but the story is absolute crap, and not necessarily due to the events that occur independently of each other, but due to the plot twists they lead up to, which in all actuality degrades the core foundation of the story's message. The core of Directive 8020 is exploring humanity's willingness to sacrifice their humanity, empathy, and moral grounding in order for self-preservation. But the way it is explored leaves the player swallowed in a black hole. You're sold this sci-fi horror dream where you board a ship called the Cassiopeia and route to prepare Tau Ceti F for colonization, which all of these crew members have personally sacrificed themselves for. However, you encounter extraterrestrial organisms after crash landing. They have the ability to mimic any crew member on your ship in order to lower your defenses, sow discord within the group, and ultimately hunt you down and kill you. Now hear this shit, and if you don't want to get spoiled, bounce out. But the plot twist of Directive 8020 is that crew members of the Cassiopeia are just clones of the original crew members, unknowingly participating in an experiment to explore how human life interacts with extraterrestrial contact. In other words, the crew members you play are as simply a part of that cycle of clones that believe they are being sent to Tau Ceti F to prepare to assess the planet for colonization. These clones are synthetic bodies that maintain the personalities of the original. I have an issue with this, and here's why. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the core theme of the story structure is to explore testing self-preservation of one's life versus abandoning your humanity to save yourself in light of your own vested interests, then doesn't pulling out your ass the fact that the whole crew was just a part of a clone cycle cheapen the narrative as a whole, cheapen the value of the choices you made and the weight of the lives you abandoned and saved? The story would have made infinitely more sense, a whole lot more sense, if the crew were simply just the originals. I mean, this gets tested in tons of video games, self-preservation, betrayal, etc., but the plot twist is what's really fucking with me here. Directive 8020 wants you to incur sympathy for clones that were part of a prior cycle with other clones, and for me, this doesn't hit the same as authentic originals of a person's life being put at risk of being preserved or betrayed. In my opinion, it cheapens the weight in decisions that are made prior throughout the story and leaves you wondering what the hell did any of this even mean if they simply are just going to send another cycle of clones anyway. This is supposed to be a human survival story, and technically all the humans survive, so what does this even mean? I know everybody has their own unique opinion, so let me know what you think about the plot twist in the comment section below. Who is the mole? Did anyone else feel like the whodunit aspect of Directive 8020, or who was the mole aspect of 8020, feel a bit stale? At least in my playthrough. We were sold this story where we thought we would be questioning quite frequently if the crew members around us were who they say they were. And a lot of those encounters where you really had question if the person was simply a shapeshifting alien were very rare in my opinion. If you haven't played, you're about to get spoiled. So in my playthrough, we had the scenario with your boy LaMarcus, and my god, wasn't LaMarcus just an absolute asshole? This is my ship and I can do whatever I want with my shit. He was like a pretentious child, and also he was an op, but we're not going to get into all that action. It was quite obvious that his doppelganger was a doppelganger because we're literally thrown into a scene with him trying to murder Certain, at least in my playthrough, a chase that eventually leads this man towards standing in a boiling hot flaming room without even crying out once, then dropping dead. Then after we see this scene, you get this stupid choice when the crew finds out the monsters can transform into each other, where it asks if you want to shoot LaMarcus before he's about to get scanned, if earlier, of course, you chose to use the great American powers vested in you to assert your right to bear your arms. And obviously, you aren't going to blicky him since you just watched the fake one get set on fire. There are cases in which Directive 8020 leads you to the answer of who the mole is, which was severely disappointing to me, I'll say. For example, Cernan and Stafford within my playthrough get locked into a fight with their doubles, but were never really put in a scenario where I was forced to decide which one to shoot, because the game, through the scene, revealed who the mole was. However, you get this other scene depending on the choices you made, where Double will enter the scanner chambers, which is one of the best executions of the who is the mole that Directive 8020 executed, in my opinion, where you have to decide who you're going to shoot or not, and have to pick out which one is telling the truth. Aside from this, I don't recall any real dire scenarios where you're forced to constantly be looking over your shoulder and asking who the imposter is. And even with that, me having made the wrong choice with taking the fake Anders onto my ship with me during the end of my playthrough, nothing actually happened to the crew following this. I think maybe what I would have liked to see were more scenarios baked in, like one where you have to choose which imposter is the fake one you have to get rid of. It sort of took the mystery component that lured me into this game out of the experience. The game takes the who is the mole experience into its own hands by handing it to you on a silver platter through cutscenes. It unfortunately strips the players of autonomy in making the decision that unravels the truth, which for a choice-based game ruptures the very foundation upon which it was predicated and built on. And I mean, a lot of the choices regarding the mole and even outside of it were strange within their own right. For example, I believe you can lose Stafford pretty early in the story when the ship starts crashing, and then the ninja starts unbuckling himself in the middle of the crash to turn the radar on. And then the game asks if you want to buckle your ass back up in the seat while the ship is actively crashing towards the ground, or go try to turn the radar system on mid-crash. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, people? And speaking of crashing, if you're enjoying the video, go ahead and crash that like button for me before I crash the fuck out trying to save your money. Also, if I may, another choice between deactivating the landing gear energy source versus the fire systems. Once again, come on people, you're not going to turn the fire systems off, because if a fire breaks out and starts fucking everything up, guess what? You can't land. Before we tackle my thoughts on the ending, I just want to say that the horror gameplay within Directive 8020 felt incredibly redundant to me, though that's not to say it didn't have its moments or lacked the ability to create an eerie atmosphere. I mean, there was one scene where I was looking at the camera and almost lost my shit. I want to say that at least 90% of the gameplay in this game simply became hiding from extraterrestrial aliens on the ship and flicking a few power switches on and off, or looking for a power cell to plug into a locked door while creeping around. As I said, that's not to say that the game didn't have its own adrenaline pumping moments when running from the alien life forms in certain scenes. Hey, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Dubby Energy, for sponsoring this video. If you're tired of getting mogged in your game because you're feeling a little sleepy, oh, feeling a little sleepy, you pussy, well, wake up! Dubby specializes in focus energy drinks that shock you awake, and unlike other gamer juice, is free from fillers, artificial colors, dyes, and other ingredients that make you crash. They've got a huge catalog of exquisite flavors to choose from, and if you're an anime fan, they've even got official license collabs with some of your favorite heavy hitters. And if you're more heavy on the collector side of things, well, Dubby's got you with a huge catalog of collector cups with your favorite characters on them. So what's the holdup? Get your hot waifu anime cup, wake the hell up, and check them out at dubby.gg, linked in the description below, and use promo code FICTION for 10% off your order, and let them know who sent you. It's simply that the deeper you progress into the story, the more predictable and less volatile the horror scenarios seem to become. Search for a power cell to open the door, and while in pursuit of it, somehow, some way, a big scary monster pops up and you have to crouch around it to get into the next room to retrieve the power cell and get back to the door. In my opinion, this aspect of the game was very formulaic and left mounds and mounds to be desired. I think maybe if there were actually creative ways to deal with the monsters, it would have made for a more unique and alluring gaming experience with regards to Directive 8020's gameplay itself. The game is supposed to first and foremost be primarily choice-based game as well, but also horror game, a genre that draws much of its prestige from its capacity to be creative with its unpredictability. Don't get me wrong, there are some scenarios where they genuinely have that pump of, oh shit, this Squidward looking thing and its hentai tentacles are on my trail and I might get snatched in places that I shouldn't be snatched. But when the formulaic pattern of boom, scary monster, sneak around the monster to get a power cell to open the door or switch the electricity current comes to fruition, it's not something you can unsee, and it most cases breaks the veil of fear or immersion that usually washes over you when you get locked into a scenario with an alien that appears. Directive 8020 has been getting a lot of mixed feedback, and I must say, I am strongly opposed to the way the story ends, and the big reveal regarding the program that the original crew members were actually signing up for. For a huge chunk of the game, the player presumes that the program that the Cassiopeia crew members signed up for was a program to prepare Tau Ceti F for colonization. However, when it's unveiled that the program that these members actually signed up for was a program to be cloned and have these clones sent into an endless cycle of experimentation to measure how foreign extraterrestrial life interacts with the humans. The entire meaning of the story flips on its head for the worse, in my opinion. Young, one of the main protagonists of the ship, essentially defects from the program and the group of originals who signed up for it. She defects by sending a message out to the clones, warning them of the death trap that they've been caught in, an endless loop of experimentation where they are fated to die at Tau Ceti F, and another caravan of clones from a renewed cycle will arrive to repeat the cycle. The spotlight on the mission then shifts to shattering the cycle. The final scene of this video game leaves you with a speech by the original second in command of the Cassiopeia, Isley, as she enters a room with Young, who has been handcuffed for defecting against the program and aiding the clones in escaping and setting course for Earth to expose what was going on. Essentially, a scene about protecting one's humanity over self-preservation, survival of instinct. Another issue that the cloning process thing brings to the forefront is the authenticity to the crew members of the Cassiopeia itself. We spent the entire game playing with characters who have their own tribulations and dreams of making history for planet Earth, all for them to find out previous versions of themselves have come before them and claim to have been the first, spanning years out. What do you think of the ending? Do you think the best way to actually capture the battle between self-preservation and dignity of maintaining one's humanity was best levied out through the reveal of a cyclical clone experimentation plot? Or would the story have been more meaningful in adding weight to the decisions of meaning of its core message by simply keeping the characters original without the convoluted clone plot sewn into the tail end of the narrative? Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think of Directive 8020? Did you enjoy the story? Would you buy it? No. You can also follow my IG page at LVamp23 and other socials in the link below. If you want more analysis of your favorite fictional worlds and characters, go ahead and smash that like button below. Turn on that notification bell, subscribe for more. The direction of progress is forward, and it's only up from here. With that, remember, if ever you're lost in forestry words, strip your mind from fantasy, look to the window of the world, and there your mind will run free.